Again.
We're not all in beautiful living rooms.
No, it's all very nice, isn't it? So cool. Shall I make a start, Joe? Is that okay? Cool. Well, thank you all very much for coming. This feels a little bit wrong in many ways because it's about you guys talking a little bit about AEO and the work that you guys have been doing. Ordinarily, at the moment, we spent so much of our time talking outwardly to influencers and government about the things that we need to do. It feels a little bit of a luxury. So thank you very much for finding the time. This is the first time we've brought together all the chairs and the vice chairs from all the different working groups that we have at AEO, which are neatly summarised on a little workflow document that we've got. And as you may or may not be aware, working groups are developed as and when we get enough interest from members on a particular topic area. We try and fit them into other groups. So if it's something related to people, we try initially fit it into the talent group, but if that doesn't fit, like the sales development group, they need a specific group for themselves, or D&I. So we try and fit things as much as we can, but we're having an increasing number of groups that are happening. We communicate what's happening with those groups via the newsletters and via stuff on social, via the development board and via the director's report that I put in for the board. But we sort of felt that we needed to do a little bit more. And we thought we also wanted to try and structure the outputs of the group a little bit more. So as and when you guys come up with something, we try to put that together into something new this year, which we're calling AEO Talks. So to try and sort of channel all those outputs as a bit of a signature date that's fairly regular, so the members get to look forward to the things that are happening, and it saves us also trying to trip up over it all with having, I don't know, I'm looking around the room, so you've got the UK organiser group wants to do three Zoom calls talking about a certain area, and the international want to do the same, and we end up trying to fit 16 things in a 2-week period. So hopefully it'll give us time to sort of spread that out a little bit more favourably for people. Last year, a little bit of a school report for you all. Did you know that all the AEO working groups met 47 times, which was quite a lot, I thought. Did you know there were 283 permanent members of the groups that attended those meetings? And then last year, we allowed guests in. So not just to make up the numbers, but because people have a little bit more time on their hands and are more interested in other areas, we allowed non-permanent members of the different groups to come together to learn and share all the experiences that the other groups were doing. So in terms of engagement, it's never been higher. Ironically, it was AEO's objective to increase engagement in the working groups as our objective last year, but I wish it had been for a whole myriad of different reasons that we were able to get that engagement. But it's really sort of important things to do. So the main purpose of today really is to let you guys meet each other in terms of groups, but also share the top 3 things that you've got coming up this year, to try and avoid any duplication of work, but also be a little bit more aware of the things that are happening. And because it's really easy for us to sort of bolt extra people into different groups, there may be other people within your organisations that may want to take part with those particular things as well. So hopefully that's the reason why you're all here. So thank you very much for coming along. Does that sound like a plan to share with everything? Is everybody happy with that? Which is all very good. Always make sure that people are still awake, which is good. You're 6 minutes in, so well done. And what we've done is we've sort of come up with a bit of a loose agenda. We've all got like 2 or 3 minutes each just to sort of talk about a little about the group structure, how often you meet, what you do, and then a little bit about the top 3 things that you've got coming up this year, but also anything you want to reflect back on. Some of the groups, I mean, for example, the Ops and International Ops group met a million times last year and got government approved guidance, for example. So the work of the group ebbs and flows dependent on what the needs of you guys are. So, but we thought that'd be a useful place to start, if that's okay. So I'd firstly like to turn to Phil, if that's all right, who's sort of chair of our events group, who had quite a challenging time at the moment for obvious reasons, like us all. But if I hand over to Phil to give a bit of an update on the events group, and then I'll turn to UK Ops and Nicola Harrison after that.
Okay, Chris. Thanks very much indeed. I mean, needless to say, the events group hasn't done a great deal for reasons that everybody on this call will fully understand. The last time we had a meeting was, I think, on the 7th of October. The main thought process at the moment is about having some kind of event to celebrate the 100th anniversary. AEO was founded originally in 1921. And these plans are obviously somewhat imprecise at the moment. None of us know where we're going to be, but the idea is in November or December to have an event, either a centenary party, I mean, possibly an AEO Awards at the Grosvenor in the classic way. We simply don't know. We're putting it on hold. We're looking at it and thinking about it very, very carefully. It's extremely unlikely we would seek to plan anything serious before then for very, very obvious reasons. But I think we have cause to be somewhat hopeful, let's say better than 50-50, that we'll be able to do something. In terms of what the awards would be, of course, that's complex. It wouldn't be a classic awards ceremony with the traditional awards for, again, all the obvious reasons that we all know about. So that's a lot of time being spent on that. The development group is also involved in that. And as things become a little bit clearer, we would hope to talk about that more seriously, but probably not until May. In terms of the conference, we're in exactly the same situation with the conference, of course. You know, we would like to organise a one-day conference. If we do so, again, it's very, very unlikely before the last quarter of next year, and again, has to be on hold for the time being. Smaller business events. I mean, we would like the classic smaller business events, and we'd like certainly 3 forums, sales, marketing, and ops in Q3, half a day each. But again, attended by maybe 100 people. But until we're actually clear that we can organise it, I think this is in our mind. It's on the agenda, but it'll be some time before we can have clarity on it. I think that's pretty much what you'd expect. But as I say, this year is the 100th anniversary, and we are very, very keen to be able to do something towards the end of the year to celebrate the 100 years. And we're very open-minded. And of course, Chris has asked for suggestions for the kind of things we might do, which are somewhat out of the ordinary. It's really unfortunate the 100th anniversary happens to be this year, needless to say. We might in the end even have to celebrate 101 years if we want to do something really big. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Phil. And maybe we can adopt a Dalmatian or 101 Dalmatians or something. That might be quite a neat thing to do. Thank you, Phil. Really good update and reflective of, I guess, where a lot of you guys are as well. So Nicola for UK Ops. I know Ian's here as well, so I'm sure he'll add in any gaps as well. So Nicola, can I hand over to you, please? Thank you.
I think we were just chatting in the group. I think Nicola's going to tell you about our 2021 objectives. I'll quickly tell you what we did last year. So on the UK Ops group, obviously our remit is to make sure the event environment is safer for everybody involved, hopefully, including but not limited to health and safety, collaboration with the UK venues, suppliers, with the intention of driving cultural change through improving processes and taking responsibility for feeding back and making recommendations around any input we get from the HSE. So in the past, we've been sort of delivered the stop the drop campaigns and the CDM adoption, etc. Last year was a really busy year for us. I think we met more than once a month last year. As you can imagine, there was a big focus on the operational side of reaction to COVID. I think our main claims to fame for last year was the adoption and development of the All Secure standard as the framework around which to plan and prepare for the return of events, and getting that approval through the government. We oversaw the delivery of the All Secure Expo, which was the pilot event at the BDC in September. And we did some significant work developing exhibitor guidance for use by all of the members across the industry. We've also got other working groups that are ongoing around logistics, welfare and scheduling, where there's resources coming out, again, available through the AEO website, which will be useful for all of your ops teams and communication to exhibitors. And we represent the AEO at the Cross Association Health and Safety meetings, where we keep sort of close to the venues and to the suppliers to try and understand what their challenges are and keep the conversations going and hopefully moving all in the same direction. And from that, I'll pass over to Nicola to tell you what we're about to set off for 2021.
Yeah, we've got some fairly clear objectives going forward for 2021. Obviously, the All Secure stuff that we did is still very much front and center of our objectives for this year, so that we can start getting events up and running again. And we're looking to sort of make sure that those resources that we've created are being sort of circulated and used, and are being sort of made available through any channels that we can think of, basically, so that organisers can start utilising them and getting events back on the ground. As a kind of adjunct to that, we're also looking very carefully at working with suppliers and venues to promote contractor welfare and more efficient logistics, just because we're very aware at the minute that there's a lot of pressure on the industry. We've lost a lot of talent out of the industry, and anything that we as the ops and organiser side can do to sort of smooth that path and make life easier for the contractors who are working with us is really important. As a part of that, we've started this new biannual forum where we're encouraging suppliers to come and meet with organisers and ask us questions and communicate with us and see what their key challenges are. I think that one actually went out, was it this morning? I think I saw an email go through that you can register to be part of the panel and ask them questions. And there's a lot of communication going on with ESSA along those channels as well. I mean, in terms of our kind of schedules and things, we're going to be looking to sort of meet fairly frequently throughout the whole of 2021, starting off with sort of 5 meetings that we've got in the diary to sort of look to support the opening of groups, and we'll be continuing to hold those virtually at the minute as we go forward. But that's kind of our 2021 in a nutshell, hopefully.
Thank you both very much. And I have to say, government approved guidance and listing on government websites is a pretty cool start. So no pressure for all the other groups. But over to V and Lindsay now for our International Health, Safety and Operator. I've got the name wrong. IHOSH. I only do 3-letter acronyms, and this is 5. So I'll leave you to do that, V. Thank you.
International Operations, Health, Safety and Security. So born out of a need to discuss challenges of operating overseas, which are quite different to operating in the UK, and to share knowledge and drive progressive change. Last year, the main outputs were focused around the creation of a fire safety toolbox, which included some fire risk assessment templates, some fire safety checklists, and some venue fire safety questionnaires, just to provide some guidance, either for UK teams going and working abroad, but also for international teams working internationally, based internationally, to support them and give them some guidance. Outputs for this year are a little bit harder, I think, given the current circumstances. The prevailing topic has been COVID. Actually, the discussion last week triggered this new think tank for COVID and sharing experiences and knowledge. In particular, we've obviously had a testing UK on-site testing, COVID testing pilot that ran in the US last week. So sharing any learnings from that will be one of the key topics coming up. We've discussed problems around travel and the difficulties for running international events, and difficulties with international travel and quarantining and all that sort of stuff. So one of the outputs we're looking at the moment is to create an international sort of database, for want of a better word, of freelancers who can support with international events. So I think that's really it for now. And that meeting is also followed by a G-Guide committee meeting for those who are members of the G-Guide committee. And we have, in the last year, we've reviewed all of the content for the G-Guide, which hasn't been updated for about 8 years, including a new section on security. And we're currently in the redesign stage. That's it from us.
Thank you, V. Yeah, the COVID think tank, members of the UK organiser, international organiser, UK Ops and IHOSH been invited to be part of that. So it's an ad hoc group, and we're very lucky that we've got Brian from Tarsus who's going to give us an exclusive on that sort of testing thing on there. But each of those group members are going to be asked for the top 3 topics they want to talk about COVID and keep that on as a sort of an ongoing agenda, a fast-paced sort of action-led group, just to sort of share all that knowledge outside of the sort of the meat and 2 veg kind of approach of the other groups. So that's a new thing for us. Next up we have, is this okay? Is this pace quick enough? Is everybody okay? Good. Thank you. It's going well. So over to Mike and Nicole, who's going to mess it up now for the UK organiser group, I'm sure. But yeah, UK organiser group, Mike and Nicole, if that's okay.
Going so well, and then you had to bring me up. Yeah, we the UK organiser group, we operate at a strategic level.
Sorry, Mike, we can't hear you. I know that's hard to believe.
Let me try again.
That's worse.
Like it's all the awards in the back that are deadening out the sound, I think.
Hold on.
Now we can hear you.
That works.
To move. Anyone want a tour of the office?
We can hear you now.
Good. Okay. We're the slickest of the groups, as you can see. So we operate at a strategic level, predominantly for UK organisers. Our previous remit was mainly led around improving relationships between venues and organisers, and we've extended that. So we meet quarterly. One of those meetings is now the CEO Summit, which is 10 venues and 10 organisers from the UK getting together and talking about sort of broad brush strategy. We also do a lot of stuff around raising awareness, operating together, sharing best practice. We've got a few key topics that are continuously being discussed at the moment around things like insurance, government-backed insurance schemes, also how the All Secure standard might integrate into a business model, how testing might have impact on financial performance of events and ability to run. And I've left all my notes out there. So Nicole, did I miss anything? I'm going to say no.
No, sorry, no, that's pretty much it, Mike.
I'll go get me notes and I'll come back in if I've got anything.
Cool, thank you. I think the other thing that the UK Organiser Group has done is had some guest presentations from some of the venues, as and when they've got new development plans, whether it be the new Boulevard at Excel or the SEC in terms of what they're trying to do there. So I'll filling in the gap as Mike walks back to the office very slowly. So
we also, Chris, one of the other things in terms of guest speakers, we've also had Malcolm Murray, lawyer, so that's been helpful as well. Especially when it comes to contracts at the moment, so and insurance advice as well. So I'll say those 2 things were important, especially at the moment.
The other bit which I did miss, which is the force majeure, which I know is something that Phil's been talking about, potentially the situation changing with venue contracts. That's quite an important topic for us at the moment about potentially if we do go into similar COVID situations in the future, how will that affect tenancies? What do we want to sign up to as organisers? In terms of the new restrictions that venues are putting on us. That's probably enough from me.
Yep.
Thank you very much indeed. So swiftly moving from UK to international, I've got Simon and Damien who can give an update on the international organiser group, if that's okay.
Okay, Damien and I hadn't prepared this, so I can't see you, Damien. Shall I go? So I think compared to the UK group, the international group has had much more of a simplistic agenda, albeit ironically back in 2019 we were planning to try and do more. In essence, it was as more and more AEO organisers were operating internationally, the group was there to try and support that and recognise that and give more general insight to do that. Prior to 2019, when I first came involved, we did several things. Where we were working as part of the, I think it was called the Global Impact Survey, Chris, where we worked at the value of international business and working in the UK. We did our very popular hosted and sponsored dinners, where we would pick an individual country or region and invite people over to come and talk to members who were interested either in moving into those markets or just interested in finding out more. And those actually were very popular. We were running between 5 and 6 of those a year, I think, at the height of them, and were very well attended, I should say. And we had our CEO Summit, our International CEO Summit, which kicked off the year in January, which was limited to 20 of our key leaders, and really was just there to set out how the year was set to progress and looking at the global market. We also had a project which we in the end shelled, which was trying to look at venue assessments, or if you like, a trip advisor, which is not a very good way of saying it, for venues all around the world, which for a variety of complicated reasons we decided we couldn't work, although I think COVID would have put a stop to that. As I said, and ironically, in 2019, we sat down before COVID struck at the CEO Summit to work out how we could do more. And I think the key things we wanted to add to what we said was really moving to a more open meetings beyond the limited dinners and the general meetings that we as a group had, which were quarterly, to try and get more members involved and have them a bit more as an open forum. Because I think international is a very big spectrum, and we wanted to really understand what the key issues of everybody were about trading, because there's many stories of all, the difference between trading in Turkey and the US or China and Indonesia. So we wanted to open that up. We never actually got to do that because obviously COVID stuck. And then last year, essentially what we did was pivoted to doing online webinars like all of us. And for lack of a better word, we really focused on sharing experiences at each time during what was going on in the world. We've gone around the world and shared experiences early on, what was happening in China, and then as China opened up, what's happening in the States, and just really try to have a way for everybody to understand and try and help. And those have been, I think I'm right in saying, those are our most popular meetings, Chris, that we had them. We were due to have our CEO meet this year, so we bravely decided to have a face-to-face CEO meeting on January the 14th, which didn't happen. That's tentatively now penciled in to be at the end of March, end of April, depending on restructuring restrictions and what have you. We have resurrected our online meetings, so we'll be having 2 of the online, I don't really call them seminars or webinars, but our meetings at the end of March on the 18th and the 25th, where we'll be doing one looking east and one looking west. So to just, again, to get an update, because we feel that's the most thing we can do. But more importantly, I think as we move forward during the year, we'll be wanting to see if we can start to open up and widen the agenda. We do tentatively have the international summit in Asia that we were penciled in for the end of last year and is again penciled in for this year to try and open up and bring, in conjunction with CISO, to work on the international group. And I should also say we work with CISO on something called the International Organisers Network, which is a grouping we use if there are issues we want to pick up on the international agenda. Did I miss anything, Damien or Chris?
No, I think pretty good. Just global events study has gone quarterly, so we're trying to find out on a more frequent basis how everyone's doing, and that'll continue on certainly in the short term. Apart from that, no, great.
Yes, we spent a lot of time trying to make that simpler to fill in. It was one of the big things that everybody asked us. So,
thank you, Simon, and the international group. And can I just swap the order around actually and jump to Paul Warren, because I know he has to disappear at midday talking about the finance group, and Justin unfortunately can't make it because they've got a board meeting that their time changed. So not wanting to put him on the spot or anything, if I could jump to Paul first to talk about the finance group, and then I'll jump in with Ali and James on talent. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Chris. Well, for obvious reasons, the finance group has been somewhat sort of snowed under with various issues this year. Clearly, the main issues going through 2020 have been focusing on government funding, survival, cash flow forecasting, and more importantly, survival of the businesses going forward. So it's been a tough year. Looking forward to 21, I think some of our key areas to look at will be government funding, which is a key element of what we're looking at to try and support our businesses going forward. Insurances, which has been a hot topic, and our T's and C's really, generally, whether there's any common ground that we can bring on as a group, looking at payment terms, refund policies, and other instrumental matters associated with controlling our businesses going forward. So yeah, that's our focus for 21.
Thank you, Paul. And just on the insurance piece, there's been a few reps from the finance group, along with a few reps from the venue and the supply community, to create the little working group, along with Mark Blair from InnoExco, who's done a really good job of trying to create the size and scale of the insurance risk to be covered. Even last night there was yet more emails with both BAYS and DCMS on the insurance piece. So it rumbles on, but thankfully all the data sets are with them at the minute. Thank the Lord. Thank you, Paul, appreciate that. And next up we have Ali and James talking about talent, if that's okay.
Hello all, it's lovely to see you all, even if you're very small on my screen. A quick update from us. Like all of the groups, we have had to shift our focus and strategy for this year for obvious reasons, because we are the talent group. So we were about attracting, assessing and retaining talent to the industry. And we have previously focused on looking at talent across other industries to bring to our industry. So through the Talent Hub, through the AEO, just ensuring that the profile of the exhibition industry as a wider part of the event industry raises its profile and becomes a very desirable industry to work for. We have had to kind of shift that focus this year for obvious reasons, to support the many people that have been affected by the situation and the amount of redundancies that obviously we've all gone through. So there's lots of ways that we're looking to do that, looking forward. One way is to collaborate with the many initiatives that are already in place. So there is a few of them, like the redundancy group on LinkedIn, for instance, which we think if we collaborate with, it's a sort of quicker way for us to be involved and to be seen to be supporting that lost talent across the industry. So that's something that we're focusing on. And also we have shifted our webinar and training focus from our leaders for tomorrow to our skills for tomorrow. And we've come up with a programme which actually I'll be really interested to get your feedback on. So I don't know if it's something, Joe, that we can send around later to this group, just to really ensure that we've got that programme right. So we've spoken to the different disciplines, from ops to marketing and content through to sales, to look at what the salesperson of tomorrow might look like and how we can help with those potential skill gaps, with the steep learning curve that we've all gone through this year by having to put on more virtual events, and just ensure that we are communicating with our communities throughout the year and not just the touch points of our events, and we've all had to learn quite quickly. So we've put together a programme where we are looking at best practice, looking at some success stories on how those journeys have looked for different organisers, and then how our talent within our organisations can learn from those case studies and talk about the kind of skills that we now need that perhaps we didn't need 12 months ago. So we kind of shifted our emphasis in our education as well. We have also done 2 waves of the talent impact survey instead of the salary survey this year, to give us some insight as to how the industry has truly been impacted by this situation, in terms of redundancies, in terms of furloughing, and just in terms of businesses generally, and just to get more insight, what we're all going through, which Chris has then been able to use with his conversations with government as well, so that they've got a full picture of how our industry has been affected. So that's been a massive shift as well. So there's been a lot of shifts for our group to ensure that we are delivering what the members need from the talent group at the moment, in terms of the organisations to retrain a lot of the time the talent that we have, but also really to support those that have been affected through these different groups. Another group that we're looking at collaborating with, I did already mention the event redundancy group, which I think some of you hopefully know through LinkedIn. They've got 1,400 members, which is sobering in itself. So anything that we can do to support them, just ensure that we are raising our profile to be seen to supporting this talent at this time, and making their life easier. And there's lots of ways that we're looking to do that. So we are looking at a mentoring programme. So if any of you would like to volunteer, please let me know. and we'll be doing roundtables through that group, with that group, offering some mentoring sessions, and also we'll be opening up parts of the AEO Keeping in Touch portal, we're calling it, within the website, so that people that aren't currently members but have been previously can access all of this content, from the webinars, the training sessions that I've just talked about, through to the mental health toolkit, through to some kind of CV workshops and mentoring schemes, so that we can support those people at this time that won't still be able to access the full website. James, have I missed anything? I can't even see
that was very thorough, Ali. Well done. That was everything. I think that the only other thing that came high up our agenda, of course, is DNI, but I'm not going to talk too much about that because I'm sure that Michael will lead on that. But clearly, DNI is a key talent focus for us. We know that it's something that we want to push harder on once we start recruiting again. But again, I'll let Michael and the DNI group cover what their objectives are around that. But yeah, thanks, Ali.
Yeah, thank you. And the only other thing to mention is that there are a few different groups that are already doing what we're trying to do by supporting the talent at this time that have been made redundant and have been affected. And one I've mentioned is a LinkedIn group. The other one is the New Model Army, which is Trevor Foley's and Liz Sinclair's newly launched group that have a lot of these services we've just talked about: training, mentoring, CV workshops. They've even got some kind of hardship fund as well to support talent. And I know that some of the bigger organisers have supported financially that initiative. And then when we're all ready to recruit again, I know that the fees are going to be a smaller percentage in terms of recruitment fees for supporting them at this time. So we are looking to collaborate with these different groups, which again, I'd really be interested to get your input and feelings on whether that's the right kind of focus for us as the AEO and the talent group to be supporting these groups, because they have quicker access to these candidates, as well as doing our own initiatives through the Keeping in Touch portal. I feel like I went on for ages.
We could listen to you all day. No, it is quite a big old agenda. Just to add in one little extra thing from us is that if there are people who have unfortunately had to leave your business, if you wanted to connect them with us, we've created a sort of a temporary record on our CRM, so basically they can access all the support in the short term, so in the hope that they can still keep in touch, keep informed, keep up to date. I mean, there's a few people on a few different working groups that want to stay in there, so again, at the moment it's more about just helping everybody that we possibly can, because that's really key and important. So yeah, that's the only extra little bit from me, and we're catching up with Zing on the talent impact study later, just to see what that could look like going forward. Thank you very much indeed. James did a really good segue into DNI, so I am going to go to DNI next, but I am also aware that the font on my screen is small and I've missed tech, so I do need to get some new glasses. So if I go to Mike next to talk about DNI and Catherine, and then I'll come back to Ruth, if that's all right, to talk about tech. So my apologies, either need better spectacles or bigger font, but I'll go over to Mike and worry about that myself for a moment.
Yes, Chris, and yeah, I'll kick off and Catherine jump in if I miss anything. So I don't know how many new groups were launched out of the AEO last year, but the DNI working group was launched last year out of the development board. It's chaired by Catherine and myself, and yeah, after that development board meeting, we clearly recognised that it's very important for the AEO to have a focus on diversity and inclusion, and to sort of set an example around that for the industry, and also develop a roadmap for how do we make our industry a more inclusive place for underrepresented groups to be reflected within as well. So we started off with, I think it's about 16, 17 members, and we're actually up to 25 members. And it's a group where it's actually the more the merrier. So the more people that can be involved, the better. And one of the reasons for that is, we, outside of the regular meetings, we are trying to create actionable outcomes as well, and using tools like polls and so forth, we can gain quite quick insights and feedback. it isn't officially a cross association. However, we do have some AEV members and also a couple of SM members that are joining the group and will be attending the next meetings. And I'm certain that there will be some element of crossover within those groups as well. So obviously the events of last year put a spotlight on inequality within our sector, and as I think that from the development group, we recognise that the events industry has a really unique role to play in improving diversity and inclusion within our communities, as we play such an integral role in bringing communities together. In the first year, we really focusing on sort of internal structures rather than external. We kind of considered the external being kind of like the products that we offer, as in our events, and of course we can look at how we can make our events themselves more diverse and inclusive. But we felt that off the back of our last meeting, that actually putting a spotlight on ourselves and educating our organisations would probably be the right place to start, and the fruits of that will obviously be the events that we produce. So the good thing about that is that these are things that we can work on regardless of the pandemic. And at the same time, we'll also be looking at what does the long-term goal of this group look like in terms of striving towards a consciously inclusive environment. And that first year, what we're looking at is education, and that's a range of blogs, a series of educational sessions via the AEO Talks platform. So we've actually got the first webinar for that next week with a diversity and inclusion consultant, Ashanti Beltil-Dew. And it's kind of like an Ask Me Anything format, in where attend registrations for that session, they can post a question that I'll be posing to the consultant to work through. So we got a decent number of registrations for that so far, but if you or people within your organisations would like to attend, if we can send around the registration link after this, that'd be brilliant. And yeah, we'll also be getting some feedback from what other sessions AEO members would like to hear about, or what kind of sessions will have the greatest impact on their organisations. And impact is a key sort of objective for this group, is that we obviously want to create this education this year, but for it to actually have an impact by the end of the year. And I believe we're looking at working with the talent group, as James mentioned, in terms of the impact survey that you're putting together. Is there a way that we can include 1 or 2 questions to get a temperature check on where do we feel our organisations are, and is the content that we're creating actually having a purpose and having an impact? So I suppose there's, and then one of the other sort of outputs that we're working on as well is a resource centre. So it initially started off as a Dropbox of collating some guidance, some examples and case studies from other organisers around what they have done in their organisations to support diversity and inclusion. In the last meeting, we reached the conclusion that actually very similar to the Heads Up sort of resource centre that the AEO put together just over a year ago, a D&I resource centre that will be sort of member facing and sitting on the website is where this sort of resource centre is looking to go, and that should be live. I'd like to say in the next couple of months, because we've actually got we've got a decent amount of the content already. However, we do have some gaps, and having more resource around things such as sexual orientation, disability, and gender as well would also be really beneficial to add to that thing. And Catherine is responsible for sort of collating all of that content. Was there anything else to add, Catherine?
No, I think you nailed it on the head.
Thank you both very much indeed. To say it is, I think it's the only new group that we launched last year, and as I say, the groups evolve as and when there's a a pocket of member need to do that. So that's really good. And again, thank you all. I should have probably started the meeting again, just mixing things up a little bit and keeping Ruth, who's desperate, giving her time to take herself off mute. As tech group, she's very concerned about that. But I'd just like to pass a massive thank you on to Joe, to Sarah, and to Zara, because they're ultimately the people that make all the different working groups happen. They get the agendas out, they attend the meetings, they do everything else. So that they're the ones that make you guys look good, and enable me just to talk complete rubbish for an hour or so every so often. But a massive thank you to them. And I forgot, I should have done that in my intro, but now Ruth's off mute. The tech group is in safe hands, so I shall hand over to her.
Genuinely, I got a bit of premature unmuting because I thought as tech group there'd be nothing worse. I did a video interview the other day and forgot to record it. So my theory is if I can't be a role model, I can be a dire warning. So hopefully we can learn my lesson. So Julie and I are tech group. We've had a two-pronged focus. Last year from mid-year, it was very much all about digital events, virtual events, how we delivered them. And we did a series of webinars, which a number of you contributed to. I think we did 4 of them. What was fascinating is the first one we did, I think we nearly hit triple figures. The last one we did, well, we hit double figures. And actually that's a demonstration of how our industry is moving. So this year's focus is going to be about less on digital events, because we think that's moving into other groups, certainly into talent and marketing, etc. But we're going to be focusing on the new technology that's coming forward, maybe a nod to some COVID tech, but also what's the new technology that we're going to see, whether that's marketing, whether that's operational, whatever it is, that's going to power our industry forward. We've formed a rather cleverly called Tech Exec, because frankly, Julie and I have got no idea what we want to focus on next for the next 6 months. And actually, when we looked at the group that had been in place last year, there's a real mix. I mean, so there's some tech people, there's some marketing, there's some brand, there's some ops. So it sort of sits between many different things. So you're a day early with the AEO meeting, because Julie and I pulled a meeting for tomorrow where we will outline the agenda for the rest of the year. We will relook at that membership to make sure it's relevant, because this will come as a shock and surprise. And I'm sure none of you are facing this with your groups. We've lost about 50% of our group. I don't know where they've gone, really weird. And so we're going to refocus that group and make sure that it is on track. And the last bit, Julie will be taking over as chair, because we clearly need someone professional who knows what they're doing, and she can keep us all in order going forward. I think Julie, and nice to see Julie and Ian are living on the same planet, which is excellent. It looks really lovely up there. And I'm sure you're able to run events on that planet, which would be nice. Julie, have I missed anything?
No, all good.
Excellent. Tech out.
Thank you very much, Ruth. So the good news is we may be able to give you the gift of time. We scheduled an hour and a half of the meeting, but based on this pace of updates, we may be able to finish a bit early, so that's really good. So if you can hang in there, that's really good, because we have got a Brucey bonus, another guest speaker to finish the call that isn't on the agenda, so bear with for that one. Next up, it's Sarah and Dan talking about our sales development group. Over to you.
Morning, well, we are still in morning everyone. So with regards to the sales development group, I mean, obviously like all the groups, it changed our plan for 2020. We started off meeting probably, it was Confex was our last meeting in person, where we were talking about apprentices and using the levy and the government working with that. And obviously we had Hayley with us, now we've got the lovely Joe. That obviously changed with COVID, and our main focus was raising the profile of sales and making it an attractive career choice for people to enter the event industry. Well, obviously with all the events stopped, that sort of changed, because no one really wanted to come and join our industry with nothing to sell on. So we retrained and moved our focus down to, you know, having a few meetings of soundboarding off of each other. What were the challenges within a sales team? We focus on the sales directors, the middle sales, and obviously the young sales in terms of the inside sales team and graduate stream. So what we did is we put some outputs out in terms of some training. So we partnered up with Flume, and he put some outputs out in selling in challenging times. We also put some output out with Steve Kemish in terms of, you know, how soon to sell and the tricky questions of when we should start selling. We've got another meeting next week, which is again soundboarding up of everyone to say, you know, what do you guys want to know? Digital and tech with, you know, Ruth and Julie's team, they sort of will cover that, because everyone's having to adapt their sales skills to sell digital events now. And again, massive question, how can we monetize these digital events, and what do the sales team need to learn and know of how to sell these and get the deliverables out there? So there's a lot going on. The rest of this year, we're going to try and run some sort of roundtable discussions on sort of sales strategy, new business strategy, management. You know, how are we going to manage these sales people working from home? How do we motivate them? You know, when they do come back into the office, a lot of them have been on furlough. How do we get them back in the seat, back selling? So we're going to be working a lot on that. And I don't know, Dan, if there's anything I've missed there, but, you know, we're just trying to cover all areas in this challenging time with the sales team, because some are working, some aren't, some are adapting their sales skills, and unfortunately some of them have been made redundant. So I don't think I've missed anything there, Dan.
No, I think you've covered most things. I think just the request from me to the group as well, it would be good, maybe Joe, we could reach out to this group to get some more members. I think we've seen different people come and go from the group through furlough, through redundancy. So we've probably got some gaps from Hive and from Informa at the moment. Be good to get some representation, and any other smaller organisers as well. But yeah, it's been a tricky year for all, so it's been a bit patchy in terms of the consistency there. But I think our aim really is to get as much representation across the industry, from large to small to medium, etc. So and as Sarah said, we've got a session next week where we can kind of recalibrate and kick on and understand what some of the key challenges are going forward. So, but Sarah, you covered most things. That'd be good.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of the stuff is working with like marketing teams. A lot of sales people that have been kept on are doing different skills. They're getting involved more in marketing. So we touched on that in 2019 about the sales and marketing teams working together. It crosses over, Alison, with a lot of the talent team as well. You know, retaining a salesperson, and obviously attracting. There's some cracking salespeople out there that unfortunately have been made redundant. You know, we've actually employed 3 sales team this month to work on some of our events. So, you know, there's a silver lining somewhere amongst all this. But yeah, any kind of help in terms of, you know, some of the members that we've lost due to, you know, furlough and redundancies, you know, and working, Alison, with some of the talent group as well. And, you know, mentoring, we can do that as well with sales mentoring. If you want to touch on that, we can support you guys in that area. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities. It's just getting something to sell, really. So when the event's back, we can start selling.
Well said, Sarah. And yeah, I think we're all behind everybody on that one. So we've got a couple more updates, and then our guest speaker. So over to Paul and Laura on the LEP, the Live Event Promotion Group.
Laura, please chip in where I bluffed my way through, as I only joined this group again early part of this year. Well, the live event group has always been about how do we promote our wonderful live event medium. For the last couple of years, it's very much been about providing tools for our members to promote themselves. We've always felt that's the more effective route, and we're going to continue to follow that path. But what we have first of all done is an audit of the assets that we have. There are around 70, I think, very credible event promotional assets, if you like, everything from webinars, guides, etc. But there's almost too many of them, and we haven't got them skinned in a way that's easy to access. So our first protocol is to relook at how we help our members utilize those. We'll probably look at that from a retention and acquisition perspective. Once we have got that, we're probably going to turn that into a webinar, which will be how to use the tools that we have got, so you can really help a member to drive its sales campaigns through the live event promotion tools that are available. Secondly, it's going to be to take on the challenge of how do we then think about the narrative that runs across live and digital, where hybrid has become certainly a watchword for most of us. Where are there gaps in the information that we have that we need to think about, other content that supports why our businesses are incredibly strong and valuable to be partnering with, because you get live and digital from it. And then the third objective will be to look at how these promotional activities are useful to international. Do we have to translate? Are there different needs that we'll have across the international marketplace to make sure that that is fully represented? And I can see us wanting to also think about clearly working with the sales group, because I think there is clearly some crossover there. And I think also we believe that the adoption of FaceTime is good but could be better, but there's been an awful lot of churn. So how do we work with the talent group to think about inductions, and that the FaceTime resources, for example, are a big part of how we induct people. So that's what we've got on our agenda. Laura, what have I missed or talked rubbish about?
No, you didn't talk rubbish at all, Paul. No, I think you covered everything there. I think there's also potential collaboration opportunity as well with the Intel group around operating overseas. I think that will certainly help us develop some more international resources as well. But no, other than that, you covered everything.
Thank you both very much, and thank you, Paul, for and Laura for stepping in for that group again. We've not been without our churn of people in there as well, so I really appreciate you picking that up. It must be like Groundhog Day for you, Paul. I think you were back at the start of that group many years ago. So we have our last formal update, which is now Development Board, which is Dan and Rachel, and then our guest speaker. So over to you, Dan and Rachel.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And nice that Paul was the last person to talk there, because Paul was actually instrumental in this group forming 4 years ago now. So I'm the current chair. I'm the event director at Upper Street Events, now Immediate Live, and vice chair Rachel Swan. Quite a few of you on the call are actually members of our development group, which is nominated by AEO council members. Like all groups, we meet 4 times a year, normally a couple of weeks before the council meeting. So what do we do? Well, the group support the work of the AEO Council agenda across a number of working groups, such as diversity and inclusion, technology, talent, and live events promotion. One of our main objectives is to keep the AEO relevant with the next generation and gain further AEO engagement in basically the middle of the building. The group is a rolling agenda, the group is a rolling agenda, and we focus on sharing the challenges members face during their working day. So this covers things like across the events business, career development, some of the challenges that B2B shows face, B2C shows. It also looks at industry-wide topics and trends that are emerging, and staffing and recruitment. So we draw upon members of our group for that input too. We also hear the tactical updates from everybody, which is really beneficial, and we discuss new content ideas for AEO events such as at the forums. At the start of 2020, one of the group's main aims was to help shape the AEO centenary activity throughout the year. However, COVID hit, so for 2021, centenary activity will pick up again, and we'll work alongside the working group on this. The Diversity and Inclusion Group, as Michael mentioned earlier, this was a 2020 Development Board initiative, and many of our members sit on both of these groups. As the 2020 pandemic continued last year, discussions within the group centered around the challenges we faced trying to reschedule events, switching to digital, so the input versus expense and value, effort versus reward. We also talked about how we keep our teams engaged and motivated given the change in working circumstances, and we shared best practice, new and relevant research and knowledge to help bring back events. So it's all very supportive. So for 2021, our group will meet again in mid-March, and we'll share some of the learnings from the last 12 months, hopefully some success stories. We'll focus on the new challenges ahead. Some of this will resonate with the groups on this call. How do we kickstart our events and give stakeholders confidence in them? Looking at how we manage our teams face-to-face as well as remotely. changes to our company's long-term business aims, including the digital objectives, the restructures and upskilling. And then we'll also contribute the tactical updates of the group's members lead and support each other as necessary. I think that's pretty much it. Rachel, did I miss anything?
No, it's very comprehensive.
Jolly good. There's your 2.5 minutes, Chris.
Thank you all very much indeed. I didn't want to overload the agenda, but we do also have 5 cross-association groups, and I think these groups intertwine with those quite a lot. So the cross-association HR group fits neatly in with talent, and that goes across. Ian's talked about the cross-association HR health and safety group and the interaction we have with the ops group. There's also an electrics group that Ian again takes the lead on that for us, which is really good. 2 others are a technology group, but that generally focuses a little bit on UK venue infrastructure on tech, so less involvement with us. But the UK organiser group with Mike, they like to input into that group to make sure that the tech is in place to deliver all the solutions that they need within the venues. And the final one, which I think is going to become more prevalent when we look up and we get going, is going to be sustainability. After we've got the go date and a plan for that, that's now my next 4 o'clock in the morning, just making sure that we address that properly. We hate to say it, I hate pivot to digital, and this year I'm going to hate omnichannel and build back better, but I think that the sustainability bit is something that we'll need to pick up quite quickly, so hopefully we can sort of permeate that through all the different groups. Before I hand over to Simon Parker as AEO chair, I'd just like to say a personal thank you to all of you. I always say that AEO is only as strong as its members, and it's only as strong as the people that step forward and commit and work really hard on behalf of all the membership. So thanks to your strength, we've got some really great active groups. I hope you found this really useful to hear about all the other activities. I have had a request. Would you mind if we shared this recording with people if they wanted to dial in to understand how the different working groups come together? Don't think we've sworn yet or done anything offensive. So if everybody's happy with that, we'll share this as a little bit of a learning tool for other people and cover it off in a newsletter so people are aware of what we've been up to. You all look beautiful, so I'm sure that'll be fine. So now I'd just like to say final thanks from me, but before I hand over to Simon to close the meeting.
Thanks, Chris. So I was getting quite excited about guest speaker, and then I realised that you meant me. So I was kind of expecting Dara O'Brien at some point to pop up. But Chris just asked me really to summarise where we're at as the AEO. And as you can imagine, this year has really kind of impacted on the strategy that we had, because effectively the strategy you had was for normal times, and that has been kind of almost ripped up and thrown away, although has been a really useful tool to have in the background. I mean, clearly what we have been trying to do this year is very much around the lobbying, around making sure we get the start date, the support and insurance that we've all talked about earlier on, and also thinking about what that lobbying looks like in the future. So what does this organisation want to position itself with government in the future? And that clearly is going to be a really key point going forward. But I think one of the things, and as Chris mentioned, that we have tried to do is increase engagement. And you know what I've heard today and what you guys have done is absolutely sensational. I don't think I've ever seen a level of engagement of this nature in the history of the AEO. So again, as Chris said, thank you so much for all the stuff that you've done. And it's also both the quality and the quantity of actions as well. So there's real actions that have come out of that and that have made a real difference to what how we've organised ourselves over the year. The other big thing that we have done is worked very closely in conjunction with suppliers and venues, and the EIA has been really key to that. So that is something that we want to build on for next year as well, and for this year going forward. But the other big thing that we're planning in the first quarter is a review of that strategy, because clearly the strategy that we had, as I said, isn't necessarily relevant to the conditions that we now have. So we are embarking on a massive grassroots review of how we organise ourselves and what our priorities are. And one of the things that we will be doing is obviously engaging with all of you to ensure that the strategy that we devise is absolutely fit for purpose, that it's doing what you guys want us to do. you know, we want to be a brilliant trade association. We want to be representative of you. We want to add value, and we want to show that we can, you know, really change the agenda, definitely engage better with government, and create a whole range of benefits for you as members. So that's what we're going to do. That's the priority for the next 3 months. And again, thank you so much for everything you've all done over the course of this year in very trying circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Has anybody got anything that they'd like to add, or is everybody happy to have an extra 28 minutes of their diary back?
Chris, I'll just drop in the chat the registration link to next week's webinar, and also if anyone has a colleague or yourselves would like to join the D&I working group, then please drop Zara an email, I think. So I'll just drop that in the chat as well.
That's perfect.
Chris, it's great that this is recorded, but one thing that I think for me at least would be useful would to see all of these groups presented in one document, you know, very simple stuff, nothing complicated, and then also just to be able to see either the calendar or the list of things to see how they interlink and what have you. I think that would be a good visual prompt to back up the conversation we've just had here and see the next steps if we can. I don't want to create more work, but I think that would be good.
No, I think we've got separate documents and strategy documents for each group on the website, but we haven't collated it on one page, but we can do those with links. So that'd be really easy to do. What we'll do is we'll put that in the next newsletter along with a link to this recording. That's a really good point. Thank you, Simon. Really good. Well, thank you all very much. I don't want to have a silent little end to the meeting where everyone's wondering what they're going to say. So I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to say thank you. Really appreciate all your help, and you take care. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Chris. Cheers.
Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Bye.
We're still recording, aren't we?
Ta-da! Yeah.